we are going off with our first non-real estate Beyond the Deal podcast. We are welcoming in the one and only Whitney, who is a client and has turned into a wonderful friend of mine over the course of her home search. And first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
This is an honor.
Is it? The first non-real estate related well, I guess it's still real estate related, but it's not like an agent,
right.
You know, Lauren.
It's from the client end of the spectrum, if you will.
Wonderful way to put it. Yeah, you're more creative than I am. I think that just goes without saying, but you can articulate a little bit more clearly.
Well, now the pressure's on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have you sort of run this whole thing. I don't really want to be responsible for it. It's really just to make sure that if we mess up and Lauren's mad at me, that it's not my fault.
Right.
It's more the
I will
guest.
take the fall for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that about you. The reason that I wanted to have you on, outside of the fact that I just love having time with you, and I don't get it nearly as much as I would like to, but I wanted to kind of talk about the home buying process because we worked for a while together to find the right home. There were some ups and there's some downs. And then the home that you ended up choosing ended up being drastically different than you set out to purchase. To say the least, right? So I wanted to kind of work through that process and just get an idea of like how the home buying process went for you and all that kind of stuff. So interestingly enough, we met through Sandy, who most of you guys, if you watch this show regularly, you know Sandy here in the office.
Love Sandy.
Yep. Wonderful person. And she knew your neighbors.
Correct. Yes.
Correct.
Who also happened to be two of our very best friends.
Right. And so it sucks that I replaced them as the number one, but you know, yeah, listen, if they're watching the podcast, that's the reality of the situation. And, you know, I moved them away from you. That was intentional. So we met. Were you looking for a house before you were introduced to me, or was that kind of the start of your home search? I can't even remember at this point. Cause it was almost 2 years ago?
It was over 2 years ago.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We hadn't officially started looking yet. We were talking about it for a number of years at that point, 1 to 2 years. I mean, that house was our 5-year plan.
Yep.
So,
and how long were you in it?
At that point, 7 years.
Is that right?
Yeah. So we were, you know, life happens, babies happen. And so we were like, okay, well, baby number 2 came. We should probably start to, you know, figure out what we want. We didn't know where we wanted to be.
Yep.
And then we kind of ultimately decided we wanted to stay here. We like the schools, we like the town. That's how the connect happened, is we were mentioning it to those guys. They hooked us up with Sandy. Sandy hooked us up with you.
Did you call about a singular property first?
No.
We had a conversation. I think I came out to the house.
Yeah, you came out and I just remember I was cleaning frantically.
Were you?
Oh my God. I'm just like, you know, what anyone does when an agent comes to your house to talk about like what you could sell it for, yada, yada.
Yep.
So I just was like running around. I'm putting away toys. I'm like trying to clean up. I was just frantic.
You went nuts.
She was like, calm down.
Yeah.
I was vacuuming and everything.
That's fine.
I wouldn't do that if you came over now.
No, I would hope not. I would hope not. But you know what's funny? Colleen would. She'd be like,
Really?
Whitney. Oh yeah.
But
she does that.
About that.
She does that about anybody though. Like if we have guests over the house, she like needs to clean it.
Oh, we're going to have to talk about that and address that.
I know.
No. So I just remember like you came over to the house and we basically talked about what we were looking for.
Yep.
And you took a look around the house to kind of do, I think, what you called the market analysis. And then we started looking. Houses popped up. I think like you came over in February. And we went to our first open house, I want to say in March, late March.
Was that the house that was like covered in trees and we sat in the cul-de-sac and talked about it? Was that the first house that we saw? Yeah, I think that was Greg's listing. We didn't end up making an offer on that property either.
No, we did not.
No, just the layout didn't work very well. What was your impression? So like, take me through like, what was your experience with real estate agents before we had met? Was it good?
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I can't say anything bad about any of the agents I worked with. I'll kind of set the scene in terms of our history purchasing houses. 2013, I bought my first house. Jesse and I were together, but not married, not living together yet. I bought a house over in Foxborough off of Oak Street.
What's the address of that place?
That was 25 Carmine Ave.
That's right. Carmine. Yeah. It backed up to the highway.
It was on the opposite side of that street.
Yep.
That backed up to the highway. Couldn't hear the highway. Adorable little neighborhood.
Yep.
Adorable house. Loved it.
Yeah.
Jesse moved in with me. We were there for, I think, just 3 years.
Yeah.
Our neighbor right next door sold their house, made pretty decent profit. So we were like, oh, that's interesting. I started kind of poking around and then found our current house, which was around the corner, just barely over the line in Mansfield, which is where we are now in Franklin Street.
Yep.
So we saw an opportunity for new construction and we put our house in the market, and that was it. We moved.
It's always funny too, because I created a lot of business over the years. I used to do a lot of prospecting and cold calling. And one of the things that I would do is when we would list or sell a property, I would call through the neighborhood and I would say, hey, listen, generally when one home sells, usually a couple more for sale signs pop up out of the ground. And it's funny to hear it from your perspective. Well, my neighbor sold and they made a really good amount of money. But it's funny that when something like that happens within a neighborhood, it makes everybody evaluate their home, their living situation, right? Because it gives something that's very tangible. Even if sales happen within a town, like, your exact same house sold on the other side of town, you're just not paying attention to it. But when it happens in such close proximity, it makes you evaluate whether the living conditions that you're in right now match what you want.
1,000%.
Right. Now that's stopped a lot because nobody wants to move anymore because of interest rates, obviously. But it's very true that happens. So if you're a real estate agent out there, listen to what she just said specifically about the idea that at that moment, had somebody called you out of the blue and said, hey, I just listed your neighbor's house. I wanted to just check in with you, find out whether you had any plans on making a move. At that exact moment when you're considering it, you probably have a conversation with them, right? And then motivation goes from there. So it can really spark conversations with motivated people. So I would encourage you to do that as agents out there. So
I can confidently say that if we hadn't seen that house go for sale, we would not have sold our house. And also, creepily enough, when they had the open house, we walked through and we were like, okay.
New house, the one on Franklin Street?
No, when our neighbor had the open house, we walked through.
Yes.
Just to get an idea of what that house was like and kind of compare and contrast what our house was.
Yep.
And so we walked through and if that house had not sold, we would not have sold at that point.
Yeah.
And who knows where I'd be now.
Right. It's interesting how those things work out.
It is.
Right. So you sell the house on Carmine, you buy the house on Franklin Street.
Yep.
And then you're there. It's supposed to be a 5-year plan. 7 years later, you guys just say, hey, listen, we got to get off the main street. You want to be in a neighborhood. You want sort of a colonial that you can grow into, that sort of thing. Yep. So then we have our conversation. I come out to the house. I remember it being very nice, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, the cleaning really worked. Otherwise, I would have judged you immensely.
I know.
Which is total fabrication too. Although maybe there's a little reality in it. So tell me about the process about working with what you want and evaluating, like, what did you think you wanted at that point?
So for a long time, we thought we would ideally like to build. Daughter of a builder,
You were hard up for land for a long time.
1,000%.
Yep.
I was like scouring this app that I had called Land Glide to look for land and owners and whatever, reaching out to people. Ultimately, I think we kind of came to the determination that we're not going to find land in Mansfield because it's
very much not existent. And you wanted to stay in town. You were really
decided we were staying here.
Yep.
Then we kind of shifted and we're like, okay, well, we can be creative about this. We can say, we might be able to still get new construction. Maybe we look for a tear down or something to, put an addition on and renovate. And that was even before we really started looking with you.
Yep.
Before we even knew what the market conditions were like. Then we proceeded to look at houses. And actually, if you recall Jamestown Circle.
Yep.
We were like
Jameson.
That's right. Yep. We were this far away from putting in an offer. Remember? We were like minutes.
Do I remember? Jesse never stopped talking about it for like 18 months.
Still talking about it.
18 months that woman brought up the fact that we didn't put an offer in on Jameson. For the record, I agreed with her that we should have put an offer in. So I just want to get it on record that I thought we should have. But listen, everything happens for a reason. And that's what I think I've learned over time is that everybody thinks they know exactly what they want and that if they get it, that everything will work out the way that it's supposed to. And I just I don't believe that that's true. I think that when things are meant to happen, they happen. And when they
you
don't.
Said that to me multiple times. And I kind of held that high because we probably went through, my gosh, 24 houses
Mhm.
over, probably more than that, over, that 2.5 year span.
Yep.
And like, if you look at Jesse and you look at me, there were a handful of those that I was like, okay, I could see us making an offer.
Yeah.
And for her, she was like, no,
Yeah.
I can't see us making an offer.
Yeah. But was there outside of Jameson? Because I know Whitney, I know Jesse really wanted Jameson.
And I did too.
You did.
I did too. But what it came down to was
it an easement?
It was an easement. And we promised each other at the beginning of this, neither of us were going to sacrifice on our big wants.
The core.
Yeah, the core things that we wanted out of our next property. And so, that easement could have prevented the garage space that I hope to have. And so it was out.
Because that was fun.
I was talking to select board members, remember?
Well, you were way more. What I remember of the entire process is you were one of the most proactive buyers that I had ever worked with. Like, you were going out and sort of making connections. You were going to look at properties throughout the town that might have development possibilities that you liked. And at that point, sometimes we do a lot of that research, but it almost seemed like you enjoyed doing it anyway.
I did. I liked the mission.
Yeah. And so a lot of what I sort of went back into was just, you would bring me sort of an idea. Yep. And then I would evaluate the idea and I'd sort of poke holes in it. And I'd be like, well, this and this and this.
Those conversations.
Right. And that, I think, is one of those things. So one of the things that I coach a lot of my agents on is experience to understand how things work. And you're never going to be able to get the experience without doing the transactions and putting the time in and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But having the experience that I do in the business, I've been in front of all of these situations. And I know sort of where the pitfalls are and where the issues are going to come.
Yep.
And it alleviates a lot of my clients' concerns about, going too far down a road that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
So was there a lot of back and forth with you and Jesse about like what you wanted, or were you guys mostly on the same page?
Oh, we had a lot of back and forth. I mean, years leading up to actually starting to look at the houses. Right. So we had a note going in our phone that was called Future House Wants.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. It's probably still in my phone. And we would just continuously add to that list. And so it was a shared note. We were always on the same page. As you know, Jesse's want.
Right.
Do you remember?
No. Well, I say yes, just
soaking tub.
That's right. They had to have room for a soaking tub.
Correct.
Now, do you have one now?
No.
You don't. So she wants one. She wants one.
She goes into the kids' bathroom and soaks in their like tub.
How often does she take a tub?
She hasn't done that for a while, but when she was pregnant, it was pretty much on the regular.
I am fascinated with this idea, because most people aren't tub people.
I am not a tub person.
I don't enjoy sitting in like a warm thing of water.
She would salt the water with
The kids
don't get it. I don't get it myself personally. I'm a shower girl. I want to get in. I want to get out. I want to be done.
For sure. But like a sauna or like even hot tubs, like even if it's your own hot tub, it like grosses me out a little bit.
On the fence.
Yeah. What about a hot tub?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if
I don't enjoy it. Give me a cold tub and a sauna.
And you do both of those things.
Yeah, I do both of them. Yep. It was funny when we were down in St. John, my cousin's daughter had a bad hot tub experience and showed up with like just like a rash all over her legs and shit. And it was funny because her mom was just like, yeah, well, that's what you get when you spend 2 hours in a hot tub.
Soaking in other people's bacteria.
Yeah.
Gross.
It's like there's only so much time you can spend with other people's skin cells.
Yeah, before your body rejects it.
Makes me want to vomit.
Gross. Anyway, a soaking tub.
Yeah, so soaking tub is your own, your own grossness. But yeah, I'll be curious to see, like, because obviously the new house will have one, and I'll be curious to see how often that gets used.
That we looked at, that we just talked about, we stood in the
on Jameson. Yeah.
No, the one before that, we were in the cul-de-sac. The first one we looked at.
Yes.
The very first one.
Yep.
Remember, if you recall, outside that house, I was like, I don't know, I kind of really like it. And Jesse was like, oh, I really like it too, but it's the first house we've seen and there's not enough room for a soaking tub.
Yep. I do. I remember
that.
Yep.
So we made that promise to each other. So, yes, we had a whole bunch of stuff that we wanted to have. And there was some core ones that we were not going to sacrifice on.
And you wanted something like a 90s or 2000s colonial was pretty much what we were looking at.
Yeah, we definitely didn't want like a raised ranch or like a split level type dealio. Just not our style. We both, you know, Jameson was the classic
center
90s
entrance
center
colonial. Yeah.
And we loved it. It was very much like the colonial that I grew up in, and very much like the one that Jesse's parents live in now. So
backed up to some woods,
yeah, it was great.
Like conservation land and stuff like that. And it was like 1 million too. It was like 960 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it sold for 960, 970.
Yeah, listed at like 925, I want to say, and went up to 960 or something. But yeah. I mean, I definitely could have seen us in that house, but now that we have what we have, I can't picture us anywhere else.
Yeah, no, nor can I. But you didn't. I mean, we didn't evaluate a whole lot of like older colonials during that time period, right?
No, we didn't. I don't even think we looked at a single home older than like 1995.
Yeah, I was going to say 1980, but it's right in that timeline, right?
Yes, we didn't really take a peek at anything older than that. And so it's pretty ironic that we ended up in a 200-year-old house.
So during the course of that process, was there a lot of stress with you guys, like with the home buying process, or was it pretty easygoing? Because obviously you guys didn't need to move.
Right. I mean, it was easygoing, but it kind of felt like just like a loose end.
Yeah.
Like, when are we going to find something? When are we going to know?
Hanging over your head, that sort of thing.
Like,
yeah.
You know, at the same time, like our house that we're in right now, you know, we're by no means bursting at the seams, but it just was like, okay, we need more space. Okay, we need more space.
Yep. Yeah. And so how did the conversation come up? Because so tell folks like what kind of home you bought.
So we ended up in one of the town's oldest homes. It was built in 1824. It is it is as classic as you can get, I think. I mean, it is so stately looking. I fell in love with it immediately.
Like two chimneys, side,
black shutter.
Yep.
You know, sitting on the corner of South Main and Beach. You know, it's just like, it writes itself kind of. But I did not think that Jesse was going to go for it whatsoever. I tend to be the one that's like more open to, you know, whatever, more, I guess. And so, you know, she looked at the pictures and we drove by, and she wasn't sold, but she wasn't like, no.
But how did we bring it up too? Because I don't even remember. Like, I know that I listed I was listing the property.
Yeah.
And I think, was it just a casual conversation about like,
we joked about it. We were joking about it.
Like, look at this thing. Would you ever consider buying something like this?
Yeah. You're like, oh, I have this one that's going to be coming up.
Right.
And we made a couple jokes back and forth about it. And then, like, I don't know, kind of fizzled out a little bit. And then actually Kelly Beth, our neighbor across the street, was like, you know, that older house, what are you guys going to do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not really sure what we're going to do yet. Then we were able to get over and see the inside of it.
Yep.
Or you sent us a couple pictures from the inside, or a video or something.
Yeah.
And that's when Jesse, I think, fell in love with it.
Well, we had seen the house across the street, which we had thought. So there's a house that was coming on the market across the street from where I personally live.
Yes.
And that was an older colonial.
Yes.
And we were trying to sell you on that so that we could have you as our neighbors, right?
You tried the old bait and switch.
I did, yeah. What do you mean bait and switch?
Well, the Vex have us as their neighbors now. So you were doing the old bump out.
I was bumping him out.
You were bumping him out.
Yeah, I wanted to establish my dominance as far as friendship goes. So like, I wanted to make sure, solidify everything.
For what it's worth, I loved that house even before. Remember, I had said to you multiple times when we had come over, I love that house. And then one day we came over and I was like, I love that house again. And you were like, funny, it's going for sale.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the inside just didn't match the appeal of the outside.
It didn't. It didn't.
Like, it didn't fit you guys. It didn't fit.
No, and that was such a bummer. I was so bummed at that.
Because we had thought that it was going to be perfect before we got into it, and then
planned our whole future.
Yeah, it was.
We planned projects.
There was going to be tractors going back and forth.
4-wheelers were involved.
Oh my God, our wives were already annoyed with us, but you know, it is what it is. So I think that's what started the whole conversation about something older and with more charm and character and that sort of thing. And then I knew that this property was coming on the market over on South Main Street. So I said, well, if you like that, maybe this is an opportunity that you might consider. So we get in there. What's your first thought of South Main Street?
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I loved it from from the second I drove by, I loved it. I loved what it looked like from the street. I've loved older houses forever.
Well, you grew up in New York?
I grew up in upstate New York. Yes.
Upstate New York.
I didn't grow up in an old house.
Yeah.
My dad built our house when we were young. I just love old houses. I mean,
what about it?
The charm. I mean, I love like classic New England. Mm-hmm. It's funny that I ended up here in Massachusetts because I mean, you're just surrounded by it.
Yeah.
I mean, all throughout all the towns up and down the East Coast, you know, Portsmouth, Newport, Boston, so many of them. And I mean, it's such rich history, right, for our country. But I don't know, just the charm of them, I absolutely love, always have.
I always think about that from like, from watching these like castle shows over in like France and England and stuff like that, where they're like this 500-year-old chateau, and I'm like,
standing for 500 years.
It's like that sort of thing appeals to me so much.
Oh yeah,
the history of it. But that's where you get into a history of the house, and you start to learn about how it was originally built and what it was built for, and then how it was used over the years and who lived there and the character and that.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
the really fact that house has stood there for 200 years, pretty much unchanged, is, I mean, remarkable. I was up in the attic the other day. My brother-in-law's in construction, and we wanted to see what it looked like up there, so we climbed up. I mean, it is timbers, huge beams. And do you know how they get the beams to stay? They used to chisel what looked like huge wooden nails.
Yeah.
They're like this long, and they're pointed at one end and flat on the other. And they bang them through, and that's how the house is held up.
Post and beam?
Post and beam.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It's really cool, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, yeah, I mean, we walked through the house. I don't know, again, it's not what I thought we were going to end up with.
Yeah.
But we saw the potential and what we could do to add to the property to make it exactly what we wanted for the next, 25 years.
Right. And we may have underestimated the cost of the renovation just a little bit.
We may have. We may have.
I don't think that's my fault, but I did happen to.
For those of you out there, never trust a realtor when they tell you how much they think the renovation might cost.
And trust HGTV even less.
Oh, even less.
Because those mothers, like I swear to God, they'll take every wall. You don't need a wall to hold up a house.
No.
Not according to HGTV. You just wipe out every wall.
You like open concept?
Open concept. Perfect. No walls, not even on the sides. It's an open air house. It's so stupid. And then the renovation costs they have a budget of $7,500.
Yeah, it's definitely not true. HGTV is pumping money into those renovations.
100%, right? Or like the contractor and the suppliers get a shout out and they don't charge for it. So, so interesting. So underestimating that budget a little bit. My God. But also good contractors are they're expensive for a reason.
Yes.
We do know that. We know that empirically because if you get in bed with a contractor that doesn't know what they're doing, my God, it'll be the longest experience of your entire life.
Yeah. And I mean, even though we didn't have a realistic idea of what the budget was going to be for the renovation between me and you and Jesse, I can still look at the numbers and say, okay, well, we bought for this much. Renovation's going to cost this much. And 8 Julia Lane or 6 Julia Lane over in Mansfield, that's a new construction that has been kind of ongoing for the last couple of years.
Yep.
That just sold for $1.8 million.
Right.
And so, while we have a 200-year-old house, by the time we get done,
it's going to be
like a brand new house with a 200-year-old foundation
and history
and everything that we want. We're going to get to handpick everything. So we're essentially getting the same thing for less than what a new construction will cost in Mansfield right now.
And the other part of it is that even if, and this is a conversation that we had a lot, was even if at the end of the day, the value wasn't there, let's say you bought it for $500,000, you put $500,000 into it, which is not the case on either side. But if you did that and it was only worth $900,000, to a certain extent, I have conversations with clients about, listen, yes, you can look at the X's and O's, but it's not like we have 25 or 30 different opportunities that you can just go, well, if this doesn't make financial sense, then we'll go to this one, which does make financial sense. It's like you either get this 200-year-old home and you do this amazing project and do it and love it and then enjoy the house and live there for 25 years raising your family, or you wait.
That's it.
Is the waiting worth it? And you waited and you were patient, but like sometimes that doesn't work out. If people don't jump at an opportunity, then the next opportunity that sort of makes as much sense as that does. And I don't mean to be flippant about money, but sometimes like if you get to enjoy a house for 25 years, but on paper, and this is only on paper, it's like you take a negative hit of $100,000 to start. It's not like in 25 years you're not going to make up that money. So.
I mean, listen, I have said this before a million times. I say this to my dad all the time. My dad's a numbers guy.
Yeah.
He wants the best deal, and he wants the best deal every time. And he would tell you that if he were sitting right here.
Sure.
But here's the thing. I said to him exactly what you just said. Like, let's just say that the numbers didn't work out, right? Where we overpaid a little bit more than what it's worth. To me, there's value in loving what you have. If you don't get the best deal, you pay a little bit more. That your mortgage is what, $50, $100, $300 more per month than you wanted. But do you love your house?
Wait, how did he take that? Was he like, you know what? Wait, I've never heard it said like that. You're right. Was he like real understanding about shit? Or no, he was just he's like, that's the goddamn stupidest thing I ever heard anybody say. My God.
You know how he responded to that? Yep. New construction. I think you should have built.
New construction. Yeah. Dads are an interesting thing.
Dads. Gotta love them.
Gotta love dads and interesting conversations. I love the dads that come into a house and they'll come in and you can tell they have zero knowledge about how anything works, right? They bought their house 25 years ago. If you go into it, like you can tell every bit of work that they've done is like hack job city.
Yeah.
But they'll walk around and they'll knock on the head and they'll, this L beam looks a little off by 25 degrees. And their kids are just like, really, Dad? I don't know.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And they'll let a dad blow up a deal. Like the surest way to get a deal to break up is to have the dad come to the home inspection. He should might as well just wear a tool belt, go right along with the home inspection.
You know, I will say, having the opposite side of that spectrum as a dad, the dad that actually does know how things work.
Yeah.
And like knows the process and has been building homes. That sometimes can also work against you. Because, like, you know, geographically, he's in upstate New York.
Yep.
We're here. Just as a broad example, in upstate New York, we use sheetrock.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts, we use board and plaster.
Yep.
He's like, I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
Well, with dads, I often wonder what kind of, like, if Belle and Rosie go to buy a house one day.
Oh, God.
Like, what will that be like for them? Like, will that be difficult for them?
I think you're looking at Belle and Rosie right now. 20 years.
Right? They'll be like, my fucking dad, you know? Like, he won't let me buy anything.
This fucking guy.
But sometimes, like, so we actually had a conversation about your dad, too, where during the course of this process, his knowledge and skill set, like you said, was he was trying to understand how we negotiate. And he has bought and sold property in different markets where there's a lot of inventory and you have leverage. And when he would say, wasn't it multiple times he was like, I would never pay that amount of money for that house. Why don't you just buy new construction?
Yes.
And you're like, well, first of all, there is no new construction for me to buy. So, like, it's not like I have this decision to go off and buy $1 million new construction right here, or this thing at 960 that's 25 years old.
Yeah, the market here was hard for him to understand. And honestly, I think it's hard for most people to understand.
Especially when they went through other markets.
Oh, yes. I mean, the market back home in upstate New York is tremendously different. It's definitely gotten more competitive and more expensive for the area, but still, I mean, you can pull up, you know, Zillow and find 15 houses for sale at any time.
Well, and you have land up there.
So much land.
Right. So there's always the option to buy.
1,000%.
Which is unique about the New England area, and specifically like the Mansfield area, where the vast majority of land has already been built on.
Yes.
There are like every plot of land that's available. There's basically two big pieces of land. There's Flint Farm, and then there's Clemmy's land off of as a street. Outside of that, developable land is extraordinarily rare, where a lot in Mansfield that's buildable, that's ready to go, is between $350,000 and $450,000.
Yes.
Just for raw land.
You and I and Jesse went and looked at the house over on Jewel Street. Remember, that was a fire
house.
That was a fire, and so we went and walked that property. Cool lot, nice street.
Yeah.
But that house had to be taken down, and this was a conversation that I had with my dad about potentially buying that and tearing it down and building new construction.
Yep.
If we were to buy that, I think they listed it at $399.
It was $450.
I think it sold for $405. Should we wager? Should we make a wager?
I think so. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it was listed for
$399.
Was it $399?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have a better memory than me anyway. I would just like...
I don't even know why you're arguing.
Yeah, I don't remember shit. Like, I used to pride myself at the beginning of my career. I would, like, remember... Like, back in high school, I used to remember, like, every golf shot. I'd go out for a round. Like, 5 rounds ago, I could tell you every single shot.
That is
here.
That is bizarre. Yeah. I don't have that type of memory, but I can tell you.
But when I first started selling real estate, I used to laugh at my partners, Rob and Scott, when we were selling foreclosures, because we were managing at that point. We were managing like 100, 125 homes at any one time. And I could tell you like lockbox combinations and owner addresses.
You still can tell me my lockbox combination. I think I texted you for it like 2 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I just refer back to that text.
That will stay in. But like now, I'll have a client that I work with and they'll walk in the office. They'll be like, shit, what's their name? It's just terrible. Anyway, what were we talking about?
We were talking about Jewel Street.
Oh, Dad's in Jewel Street.
Yeah. So I called my dad after that because, I mean, really, that property was pretty.
Yes. That would have been a beautiful place to put a new construction on.
Beautiful. I mean, it overlooked like the stream in the back and it had a pool and everything. Granted, it had a huge fire. There was a ton of damage. It had to come down. I called my dad and I was like, they'll listen at $399, whatever. And he's like, man, I will be shocked if they get $399. And they sold it for $405.
Well, and that one was unique too because you'd have to spend $50,000 to raise the house and get the lot clear. And then you don't even know if you can use the septic, but I think they kept the foundation on that.
They did. I drove past it the other day just out of curiosity to see what happened. And I think a builder came in and they bought it and they used the existing foundation and built on top of it.
Right. It made a lot more sense to do that.
Yeah.
Because the cost would then, one of your biggest costs in construction is the foundation and site work and all that kind of stuff. So if you can avoid that, you could probably pay that money, but that's not what you were going to do. Right. You were going to start brand new.
Yep.
But yeah, that's the interesting thing about input in real estate transactions. Sometimes it can be really beneficial and sometimes there can be a lot of value to it. One of the things that I find is that most parents or friends or depending on culturally, it's interesting too. Like if you look at the Indian population, like there is very much a friendship sort of circle where they will get a lot of advice and guidance from their friends.
Really?
Yeah. So like if they're negotiating, they'll bring up all the time, well, my friend said this. Well, my friend did that. So they're very loyal and they'll refer. Like if you get into a social circle, like they will recommend you and they'll like shame their friend if they don't use you. So they're very good in that aspect, but they're typically very tough negotiators too.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how people evaluate. And I do feel for buyers and sellers sometimes because the vast majority of real estate agents, 70, 80% of them really don't know what they're talking about, but they pretend to. And they pretend to because they feel like they have to provide that value to a client where they really should just say, hey, to be honest with you, I don't know, but I'm going to get the answers for you, which is what a client would absolutely and respect, but they feel like they have to know something on the spot and they get hit with a question that they don't know an answer to and then they just sort of make something
fake it till they make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which with the largest financial transaction most people will go through in their entire lives, that's not the time to do it. So in one aspect, I sort of hate it because having the experience, sometimes having to negotiate not only against a seller or a buyer on the other side of the transaction, but now I got to negotiate against family members too, can be really difficult to navigate. But that's ultimately what's in the best interest. The person who's making the decision has to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And if the family member makes them feel comfortable, or if their friends make them feel comfortable to make a decision, then ultimately it is my responsibility to make them feel comfortable and let them. And a lot of the times it's just making sure that they know that I know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So listen, put your family on the phone. I'll have a conversation with them. I want them to understand that they can ask me any question and I will give them an honest answer. And if I don't know the answer, I will tell them that too.
Yep.
And a lot of the times, if you can establish that that confidence with then they tend to back off. But they're like,
I mean, it's trust.
Correct.
It's trust. It comes down to trust. I mean, I know that my dad is only looking out for mine and Jesse's best interest, right? Like I'm the only kid that lives away from them as well. So he just wants to make sure that we're good. And listen, he has already helped us out tremendously going through the process with building and renovating at the new house.
Yeah.
And you know,
with input and stuff.
Yeah, input and like, you know, materials and, you know, how do we get this done most efficiently? How should this be done? And he's going to only be helpful throughout the rest of the process. But, you know, since 2013, when I bought my first house and it was board and plaster, he's been like, I don't get it. So, you know, I can't blame him.
Yeah, I don't either. And it's difficult to understand what the reality of the new real estate market is.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
It's stupid. And it's unlike anything else that's ever been. You know, there's been crazy markets in the past, but they haven't been like this.
Oh, yeah.
There's been buyer markets, there's been seller markets. Like they said, every 5 to 7 years things shift, right? But there's never been a market like this.
I mean, I don't even know what the market's going to look like when we go to put our house on the market right now.
Yeah, when are you listing your house?
Great question. We should probably talk about that.
Need some inventory. Let's go. But that's the uncertainty. We talked a lot about that with buying this because there's a lot of time in between when you were purchasing and then you could go and sell.
Yeah, we heard about it, like in May, and we didn't close until September.
That was a long period, turn time.
Yep.
But there was a lot of uncertainty about like what ifs, right? Like what if we buy this house and the values go down drastically? And I remember having a conversation with you about that and saying that it's very similar to what we just talked about.
Yeah.
That even worst case scenario, let's say worst case scenario, the market tanks. I can't expect in any uncertain terms that the market would go down less than 10%. And so even if you look at worst case scenario of 10% down and your property drops from $900,000 to let's say $8.25.
Yep.
Right. You can still financially afford the new house.
Yep.
That's one of the first things that we always have to make sure.
Of course.
Like that's not going to put you in a situation where you're in trouble. And if that's the case, then ultimately, if the worst case scenario happened, would you still want to buy the house? If I told you can only get $825,000 for the house right now, would you still do it? And the answer was,
yeah.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of what I do with clients that I think I never really appreciated the value of it for my client is just sort of walking them through the decision-making process.
You are phenomenal at that.
I think it's such an important part of what real estate agents do is helping people make decisions. A lot of people have either decision fatigue or an inability to sort of make such a drastic decision. I mean, think about how many people out there like have a hard time deciding on what to eat when they go out to a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like what are you guys having? I gotta take a survey of what everybody else is.
Oh, Jessie does this all the time. This is so great. She goes, server comes over and okay. She goes, so I was looking at the steak and the salmon. Which one would you say is better? That's her classic move.
Yeah. And does she always go with what they recommend?
Yes.
100% of the time?
100% of the time.
Like, because then the decision doesn't need to be hers.
It will, and then also, if she were to change, it would be tremendously awkward.
Just be like,
It's like, oh, the salmon is my favorite. It's phenomenal. All right, I'll have the steak.
See, but I've done that. I've done that just to confirm that, like, that's what I want. They say the salmon, I'll be like, yeah, you're right. I don't want that. Yeah. Just to make sure that but it's hard. I mean, if that people have a hard time making decision and especially these days where on the buy side, I sometimes say to parents who are trying to understand the market, I'm like, you have to understand that like all of the risk that used to be held by a seller during a real estate transaction, right? And it's funny to describe 10, 15 years ago, how I would put a house on the market and I'd be like, I need a 6-month contract to sell the house. And I might, put it on the market. And the first week was just like, we're just getting it out there.
Yeah.
There's no expectation of showings.
Remember that?
And then it would be 3 months and you'd be like, well, we've done 3 price reductions and now we need to do another price reduction in order to attract buyers to get them to beat out the 10 other listings that are just like yours.
Yep.
Right. And you could go out to a house and you could be like, you know what? I really like this house. In 2 weeks, I'd like to bring my parents by. And I'd be like, all right.
There was no sense of urgency.
No sense of urgency.
None.
It was amazing.
And then you'd get a buyer and then there'd be a home inspection.
Well, the risk was insane, right? Like, so from the seller's perspective, yeah. Oh, and it was like, if you see a pin out of place, like,
I remember renegotiating. Yeah, renegotiating.
Home inspection negotiations were like such a huge part of like keeping a deal together. And they were like, well, if you don't do that, then I'm going to go to one of these 7 other houses.
Yeah.
And it's like, at that point, you have no leverage. And it's like the buyer could come in and they'd be like, listen, I'm going to pay you $50,000 less. I need a month to do a home inspection. And I'd like you to cover all of my closing costs. And I want the oil in your oil tank included in everything.
And then, could you do a little dance?
Yes.
Basically.
And so if people are used to that sort of market and then they come in and they hear about their kid buying a house where they have to waive home inspection, cover appraisal gap, give the seller a use, let them live there after you buy it for free.
It's insane.
Insane.
I mean, it's a hard pill for anyone to swallow. Yeah. Let alone if you compare someone who the last time they bought a house or sold a house was when times were like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
in the olden times?
Yeah, the olden times. I bought and sold both of my houses.
Like that?
In that market.
It's really wild. I always love when...
I remember when you told me that home inspections are like null and void now.
Yeah, how'd you feel about that?
I was like, how am I going to tell that to my dad?
Wait, you mean the home inspection? It's funny. Buyers these days, they'll come in and they'll be like, no, I want a home inspection 100% of the time. And then they'll lose out on 3 or 4 properties. And they'll be like,
I don't need that.
I can waive it on this one.
That's fine.
But it is. I'm like, listen, you have to match, your motivation to get this property with the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah.
If the motivation doesn't match the opportunity, then it doesn't make sense, or the risk doesn't make sense.
Yep.
So yes, you should waive your home inspection, take a shit ton of risk on a property that you really love, that you like, feel like you can't live without. But if you're like, yeah, this is a good property, I could see us living there, but then maybe don't overpay like crazy for it. Maybe do a home inspection. And if you get it, that's great. If you don't, then you wait for that opportunity where you have to have it, where the risk is worth the opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what happened with South Main Street.
1,000%. And, like we just kept saying, if it's meant to be, it'll be. If it's meant to be, it'll be. When we find our house and we walk in, we'll know.
Yeah. Well, you even got to negotiate, which was super rare, but you got to negotiate. I loved that you negotiated too. I do. I loved it.
The apple don't fall far, Ben.
No. And I think we actually had that conversation when we were negotiating that deal, because again, like I knew how much this property sort of fit what you guys were looking to do, and I could see the vision for you.
Oh yeah.
And I don't normally have somebody that loves the house and the opportunity that much, but that also has the leverage to negotiate. Most of the time, the leverage isn't there for people to negotiate. So I swear to God, I think that was the most that we've negotiated off of a list price, over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Because most times, again, the seller either isn't willing to negotiate and doesn't believe that that's the accurate value of the house, or the buyer is too emotionally connected to the property to actually negotiate. So sometimes when I get the opportunity to negotiate, like if a buyer is unemotional about it, then I'm like, nice, I can actually negotiate.
I mean, it was as unique as you can get, I feel like, these days.
Yeah.
It was a state house. It had sat for a little while, but nobody had lived in it for a while. And then, I don't know, it was just like it was so, thinking about it now, I'm like, how the hell did all these pieces fall into place?
Right.
It's crazy.
Like a lot of things had to happen, like very specifically.
Yep.
For a lot of things had to not happen to line up to do this. Yeah. So when you're talking about, so we still have to sell your house.
We do.
Yeah. Any stress with that?
No, I mean, I feel like almost like the hard part's done, right? We did the hard part. We did the buying. The selling should hopefully be the easy part.
Yeah. See what happens over the next couple of months. But
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line though, the economics of it still are hold true. Like we have way more buyers than sellers available. There's not land to develop to add any discernible amount of inventory. That location that we're in is not going to all of a sudden start to have a cultural shift or a population shift where all of a sudden we have far less, population. So like the economics of it just won't allow for a huge price reduction or anything like that. Like, it's not going to substantially change.
We're what? We're May 7th today. So let's say we're listing, in the fall.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Knowing so.
I don't know. Is that late? Should we do it sooner? Should we do it later?
Well, no. I mean, you've got to, it depends. What's your build timeline?
So once we start, we should be 8 to 9 months.
Right. And we're in May. So you're going to start in June?
Hopefully we're starting by June 1. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
So
June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, completion, move in March.
Right. And you got to have the house until then.
Yep.
Can't listen to fall to do a March closing.
Okay.
It'd be like a Christmas time. January listing. It's sold.
Whatever you say.
Or we sell in the fall with a use and occupancy.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody would want to do that over the winter though. I wonder who we should call to get some advice. Should we call your dad? Call you guys.
If we call my dad right now, he's going to say, list it tomorrow.
Get it sold, live in the trailer.
Get it sold. Yeah.
Live in the trailer. Come live with me.
I contemplated it.
What, living in the trailer? What, until Jesse told you no?
Yeah. Didn't last very long.
I was trying to, but also, like, would you want to live in a trailer with your kids?
No, listen, when we take that thing away for a long weekend, by the end, I'm like, okay.
Get me, though. Out of here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't, you've got a good sized trailer, too, right?
28-footer, yeah.
That's nice.
Still not big enough. No, you have no idea.
I have no idea. I'm just like, ooh, that's nice. I have no idea what the size of a trailer is. Is that a good sized trailer? Is it medium?
It's a mid-sized trailer.
You're not going to get laughed at if you go to a trailer park? No, you got like substantial. It's not like a pop-up or anything, right? No. I don't know. I kind of want like a pop-up. Just bring it home, park it in my driveway, see what Colin thinks. It's like a 1970s, like one of those brands stuff like like that faded like tan.
Oh yeah,
one that like pops up, smells
mildewy.
Yeah. I wonder how she'd react.
It's like the good old days.
Yeah, right. What good old days? Like
I don't know. I actually never camped in my life. I don't know why.
Why a camper? Just mobile living? You're just enjoying mobile living? Yeah. When was your first, what made you buy a trailer?
COVID.
Yeah.
Remember those dark days?
Yeah. You think trailer sales spiked?
Oh, I know they did. They went outrageous. And then you know what happened 2 years later?
Yeah.
Everyone but Facebook Marketplace found it off. Yeah. People were like, why the fuck did I buy this thing?
Right. I used it 3 times.
That did not happen to us.
What did I use? You still use it?
Oh, we use it all the time. We're going to P-Town in 2 weeks.
Right. Because you have a place to park it there.
Yep.
And now is it open now? Can you go?
Yeah, we're going May.
Did you bring it up and back?
We leave it at my house. We were going to do seasonal down there, but eventually we'd like to leave it down there.
So you just buy a timeshare or something? How's it work?
Oh, it's just a campground.
Yeah. Oh, so you just pay when you go?
Yeah. It's cheap.
Anybody can do it?
They got to have a camper or a tent.
Yeah. You got to reserve it?
Yeah. It's like a reservation. Like a hotel reservation.
How much do you pay for a place to park your RV?
So it's like $100 or like $110 a night. So it is the cheapest way to go to P-Town.
Right. Yeah, land's premium down there.
Yeah. I saw parking spots for like $75,000.
Well, my folks bought their 165 square foot shed for like $60,000 back in the day. And it was and that made a lot of sense because they just it's a bed, it's a little small kitchenette.
You just need a place to sleep, right?
It's a place to sleep, but they got a little outdoor area. It's part of a little shed community. And now those things are going for $300,000.
Oh, I bet.
Just 170 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's this office.
Yeah.
Wild.
More. This office is probably bigger than that.
No. Well, this office.
Oh, is this?
I'm talking about this office. Like, it's probably this wide. It probably is this wide and goes to like Lauren's desk.
That's crazy.
Isn't it wild?
I'd do it though.
Yeah. But my parents don't even really like each other, and they spend a lot of time. I'm joking, Mom.
Let's call them right now.
I think they'd agree with me. They'd be like, "Yeah, can't stand them, but you know, what else are we gonna do?" My dad's joke, because they've got that amount of square footage. They'd be like, "We'd love to have you down. We just simply don't have enough room."
It's like the ultimate dad joke, but also true.
Very true. I think that was intentional. It's like, what the fuck do I want all these kids around?
Right.
I can't enjoy my weekends.
Perfect, honey.
Yeah.
Sign the papers.
Meanwhile, my mom is like one of 8 children from an Irish Catholic family, and they like don't separate. So she's probably like, I need all 18 of these buildings, and then we can have all.
Is it really a shed community?
Yeah. Well, it's so like, you haven't seen it. I thought.
No, I lived in something similar in Truro when I lived in P-Town.
So it's right on the Truro P-Town line.
Yeah.
On Commercial Street. So
yeah,
it's 962 Commercial Street.
All right.
And there's like a very, very small, it's like a 600 square foot cape. And then like out front that faces the street. And then there's probably 7 little sheds. Yeah. And I want to say originally it was probably like some sort of like a hotel
or like an artist's like
retreat sort of thing where
there's a lot. There's a handful of those kind of along Commercial Street and N6A.
Yeah, and they're great. I mean, that's really like for pound, that's all that they need.
Yeah,
because then they shut it down in the winter. Right, nobody goes down there, and everybody's got outdoor showers.
Oh yeah,
it's like, outdoor shower, and that's all you really need is a place to sleep.
You want to talk about real estate market? P-Town is having a serious problem down there with cost of living and cost of real estate. It's absolutely outrageous. I bet you they could maybe get more than $300,000 for this shed.
I'm wondering. Well, it's seasonal too, so like,
yeah.
It depends on like. You can only use it per part of the year. So I've heard that the Cape is like starting to like wind down on pricing, just because like, I don't know. I think Airbnb is not as lucrative as it once was.
Yeah, that's going
more inventory
everywhere, I think.
Well, you know what? Airbnb pisses me off. It's like they advertise a price that's like $250 a night, and then I'm like, great, I'll have it for 3 nights. I'll get in and out under $1,000, and then I go to check out, and it's like $2,000.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Well, they have to cover their costs. And then now what happened is all of these communities and these states and cities that are seeing a spike in Airbnbs realized that they were losing out on money.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, wait a second. I think we need to make a tax.
Mm-hmm.
So they taxed.
Well, when we vacationed a couple of years in Nantucket, it was like Mass had a tax, and then Nantucket had a supplemental tax.
Yep.
It was like 25% at the end of the day. Maybe it wasn't that much. It was like 14 to 16%. But it's like, a rental in Nantucket is going to cost you $10,000 anyway. You got to pay like almost $2,000 in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
outrageous.
Well, and the big problem with Airbnb too for a town is that, you start to lose full-time year residents, and it's only when the properties are in season can you get the rental from it. So you lose full-time residents, which like actually depresses the community in non-seasonal time periods. And then the school systems start to not have enough kids in them. Yeah. And then there's no need for the school system. Then you have a lower tax rate. It's a problem. Mm-hmm. But somebody else can figure out that solution.
We don't have enough time for that.
No. I mean, we need at least another 45 minutes.
At least.
Right. Listen, we'll have to do this again. I think the next venue that we should do this, we should invite Lauren, and we should probably do it at like my house or something like that. We can sit around the pool. I can do a deep V on it.
Yeah, that's really just like
just we'll release the chest.
Yep.
Get some sun out there. We'll get a couple of drinks. We'll have some fun. But for the time being, I appreciate you being on. And,
thank you for having me again. This was an honor. Yeah. I really feel like I should get like a medal or something, or like a trophy or something to take home.
Pin?
As like the first.
A pin?
A pin? Finally.
I think Sandy might kill me, but should I get one of those that just says on it just like sold and you're welcome underneath? So I'd give that to my clients.
Yes. I still when we sell our house and we complete the transaction, I am requesting officially the life-size bin.
The cardboard cutout.
Yeah.
You want the old school one? Or you want like a...
Is there an upgraded version?
Well, there's one with Ben in like a suit, like old school suit. Like Suit Ben. You remember Suit Ben? Suit Ben was still sort of around when we started working.
Yeah, I met Suit Ben the very first time. And then...
Did Suit Ben show up?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Now we get casual work casual Ben.
Work casual Ben.
I like it. I respect the change.
It feels more comfortable. Although sometimes when I do book like a listing appointment and I can tell that the folks are older, I'll go home and change into a suit. Just makes them feel more comfortable. If I show up in this sort of thing with some white sneaks, it never ends up going well. They want
who's this kid?
Yeah, this casual Charlie here. You know,
you gotta roll up with smoking a pipe, an old school tobacco pipe, or a suit,
like a monocle. Like
yeah.
Like,
what time is it?
What time is it? Pull out a wristwatch like that. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Cool. Thanks for having me. This was great. It just kind of felt like we were hanging out for an hour.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what I was telling Lauren, was that we talk about a bunch of nonsense. I'm not even sure like who the fuck watches these things.
I mean,
like, I don't really care at this point. I'm just doing it to have a lot of fun and get better at having conversations with people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one step closer to my dream of starting a podcast. So,
what would you talk about on your podcast?
I have like a whole assortment of ideas. I'm not sure which way I want to go yet. I ask myself this all the time. What would I talk about and who would I talk to?
Yeah.
Two big questions that you probably need answers to before you start a podcast.
Well, that's what I talked to Lauren about it. And that's why originally Lauren was just going to set me up and start like recording everything. And then her and I sat down to do a podcast. She's actually a really fun person to talk to because she thinks very differently. And she's good on a podcast because she can direct a conversation, which is nice to have around because my mind just goes all over. But she's super fun to talk to.
I could foresee some great banter
between the three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be good. Yeah. Like, we'll have to do this again because I'm sure the 25 people that watch this won't remember, and we can shoot it again afterwards.
We should just not put this on Esposito and just rename it and rebrand it as A Lesbian and a White Dude. And it's our first episode of
My Lesbian Best Friend.
So a lesbian and a white dude walk into a bar.
A lesbian and a white dude do a podcast. I think that could work. There's so many jokes there because for those people who don't know, like Whitney and I are the same person. Like what we found out is that you're just a lesbian version of me.
Right? I don't have facial hair.
No, I mean,
and you barely do.
I barely. I think you could probably, if you worked at it, could probably grow a better one than I do. Yeah, just like push it out.
I actually just plugged my one black chin hair before I came here.
Oh, you should have left it.
I know.
But then, like, I got about the same one. Do you know the other day? I put it on my story, so you might have already.
I know, you shaved off
right. And like, that was the patch that takes a long time to grow anyway.
So it's a thin area. You did it to yourself.
I know. But Whitney and I are very much the same people. And our wives are the same people too.
They are very similar, yeah.
Which is wild to think.
Everything happens for a reason, Benjamin.
Yeah. Well, fun having you on. We'll do it again soon.
Great. Can't wait.
Thank you.